Methoughts that I had broken from the tower, and was embarked to cross to Burgundy. And in my company my brother Gloucester, who from my cabin tempted me to walk upon the hatches. There we looked towards England, and sighted up 1,000 heavy times during the wars of York and Lancaster that had befallen us. As we paced along the giddy footing of the hatches, methought that Gloucester stumbled, and in falling struck me that thought to stay him overboard into the tumbling billows of the main. O Lord, methought what pain it was to drown, what dreadful noise of water in mine ears, what sights of ugly death within mine eyes. Methoughts I saw 1,000 fearful wracks, 1,000 men that fishes gnawed upon, wedges of gold, great anchors, heaps of pearl, inestimable stones, unvalued gems, all scattered in the bottom of the sea. Some lay in dead men's skulls, and in the holes where eyes did once inhabit there were crept as 'twin scorn of eyes, reflecting gems that wooed the slimy bottom of the deep and mocked the dead bones that lay scattered by. Hello everyone, Richard III, Clarence's Dream. The critical sorcerer here, Brian Jennings. This channel exists to discuss the true story of the movie Critic, what actually occurred. I'm the reason that Quentin canceled his film, The Movie Critic, last April, and the two of us have been embroiled in a legendary psychic siege for going on 2 years now. Right? So I'm a writer as well as an actor. Right? The Movie Critic is about a writer. Right? It's a movie about a writer. Right? And so after I didn't bend to his psychic whim at a screening of Jackie Brown at De Niro Con, there's my ticket. Right? He decided that it was better for him psychologically, right, to show everyone around him that I'm completely insane so that he doesn't have to, right, admit that he played Russian roulette with his career. Right? Because he wanted me to question him about cinema speculation. Right? And when he stuck his nose up at my letter, right, when he turned his back on my letter, I did the same thing. Because he didn't want to say anything to me practically. Right? And so I chose my side, right? Like that's my right. Right? And if he had paid me $250,000, $1 million, up to $5 million, right, for my scene, or just to be a pain in his ass and said, there's the non-disclosure agreement, you sign this, right? I thought you were cool, you're not cool, then he would be cool. But he's not actually cool. He's an evil, dangerous man who is interested in evil. He's not interested in love. He doesn't see anything that's good in his life, right? And so this channel exists, right, for me to be able to talk about it, right? I've told everyone that's involved, and I'll tell everyone on this channel, that there's a clear path to proving me insane, right? Doesn't matter that he's famous. That doesn't make one fucking difference at all. Right? That if I'm insane, right? Like if there's no validity in any of my claims, then this conversation that Quentin had with Robert De Niro doesn't involve me either, which I was in the front row of. Right? And I've been upset today, right? Because it's just ugly, right? It's just, right? There's nothing good about what this is now. Right? Like, is he shooting The Movie Critic right now? Right? Because The Continuing Adventures of Cliff Booth is shooting right now, according to IMDb. Right? Right? But I'm an actor as well as a writer. I've written a novelization of my experiences. But the first thing that we're going to talk about is that monologue that I just did from Richard III, right? Clarence. Clarence's Dream, just before he gets murdered. It's a really famous scene. Right? And so what I'll say is that all of these scenes in the history plays, right, they're all real people, like real instances. I don't know that all the scenes are completely real, right? But all of these characters are all real people, right? And he pulled from a particular writer, Hollinshead, right? However you want to pronounce that, right? And so that monologue in particular, right, is a really beautiful example of Shakespeare using his imagination, right? Because Clarence, according to the record, right, was found in a Malmsey butt, right? And this is what the murderer is talking about later in the scene, right? I'll drown thee in the Malmsey butt within, right? That he was drowned, right, in a giant vat of like beer or wine or some such, right? And so Shakespeare, knowing that, right, he writes all these beautiful monologues for Clarence leading up to his actual murder, right? Where he's talking about, oh Lord, methought what pain it was to drown. Of course, Clarence, there's no record of Clarence saying anything of the kind, right? But Shakespeare is a wonderful writer, probably the finest of all time as far as English is concerned. And so he was familiar with this book, Holinshed's Chronicles, right? And he used artistic license in the most beautiful, profound way, of course, for Clarence to ruminate in such an abstract, metaphysical way about a dream, right? He has this dream, like, oh, I saw all these dead men, like with gems in their skulls in the ocean, right? That this is, right, that's a proto-Freud, that's a sophisticated psychological nuance, right? In 1600, whenever the play was written. And so I prescribe to a particular philosophy that the writer of the plays was Edward de Vere, right? But you can say that it was the man from Stratford, and that's fine too. But what I'm saying is that whomever wrote it is really it's irrelevant. Like what matters is what's on the page, and that scene in particular is a beautiful example. And if we look to Richard II as another example, that the scene with Brackenbury right before he gets killed, right, like that whole scene, that's like pulled word for word out of Hollinshead, right? The devil take Henry of Lancaster and thee as well, right? It's like something like that. It's like pulled letter for letter, word for word, right? And that the guy who killed Richard II, right? He was crying a lot. He saw Richard kill like 7 people, and he said, "Oh, that was a great nobleman has died," and all these things, right? So, right, Quentin and I are right here, right, just right there, right. Right, and I'm not proud of having to write Westboro Baptist. Doesn't interest me at all, right? But he didn't really leave me a choice. He kept being evil, and God willing, it's just psychological torture. It was just to traumatize me, right? Which I'll always deny. Again, right? Like this is, right? He doesn't have simple honesty, right? And this is the point that I made in my previous video when I said, oh, if he just stays steeped in this bile, if he's just got bullshit bile all the way over his head for the last 20 years of his life, right? Then everything that he's built will come crashing down around him, right? This is the cost, It's not right, like, oh no, it won't. It doesn't work that way, and that's fine, But right, what I'm saying is that he's been lying to everyone around him for a long time, and he got me good, right? He made me seem insane, right? Made me say awful, hateful things to Ari Emanuel and Mike Simpson, and I don't regret that because they've insulated his evil and said, oh, well, what can we say? Oh, he's the guy that makes our money for us, right? Oh, he's, right, like, oh, this guy, he must be telling the truth. This guy's insane. Right? And so now every time Ari Emanuel fucks his fine wife, he sees me. And every time Mike Simpson fucks a 12-year-old boy in Tijuana, he sees me. Right? And so I don't regret that. But it never had to come to this. That's my point. Right? I'm not interested in seducing anyone's wife with my mind. Right? Right? The point that I'm making right now, right, is that the book, which I'm going to start reading on soon, is called Building a Coven. Right? As in a witch's coven. Right? And so the things that people refer to as psychic, clairvoyant, right, telepathic, thaumaturgic, psychokinesis, etc., 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 all these terms, right? That they're the same terms that people used to refer to as magic and sorcery in centuries past. They're not similar things, that they're the exact same thing. This logic is unequivocal, right? And so, right, Quentin has entered into a covenant, right, with the people around him to compel me to blow my brains out, right? Hoping that I would walk out into traffic and get run over by an 18-wheeler, right? All these things, right? And now that he's failed in his bullshit subtlety ploy, right, with emotions and the heart, right? He's entered into palpable black magic evil, right? Which I can do too. Anyone can do. This isn't, right? It's easy. He stole it from me, right? And so in that way, right, his design was always to traumatize me, right? And everyone who knows anything about anything, right? Unless they're all just complete fucking degenerates, right? And this ain't fucking Hollywood types that we're talking about here. This is Dr. David Berlinski from the Discovery Institute, author of The Devil's Delusion, author of Science After Babel, right? That this is, right? This is the jam band Fish, right? Trey Anastasio, right? And they both have said in their own way, right, that the things that Quentin touches on must be true in their own way, right? Trey, like, of course, Fish has a really famous song called Divided Sky, and CBS or someone was interviewing him however long ago, and they said, you have this really famous pause, and now everyone goes crazy at the pause, and they were talking about Divided Sky, and so in the 90s, everyone was quiet during the pause, right, which they typically played at sunset, right, with the shifting light, right, Goethe's color wheel, right? But now, in the last 10 years, right, everyone started going crazy during the pause. And so what Trey said, right, and I quote, I had the thought that I was playing the note, right? So he has the thought that he's playing the note, 20,000 people go crazy. That's the power, right? Quentin has a thought, right, that he wants me to question him about cinema speculation, right? And then he has another thought, right, that he has a daughter who's an adult who loves me, right? And then he has another thought, right, that the Discovery Institute wants me to play Hamlet, and this girl I know in Seattle named Hannah, she's Anna in the novel, that she loves me, right? And then he has another thought, right, that Trey Anastasio wants to help me play Hamlet, and his daughter Eliza wants to play Ophelia to my Hamlet, right? And then, right, inevitably, right, his daughter is a prostitute who gets pissed on for $500 an hour. And that's Allie Jean _3 or 4 on Instagram. You want to ask her if you can piss on her for $500 an hour? Pretty funny to me, right? But my point is that when I turned it all on him, inevitably he said, no, this isn't, no, there's no daughter. It's all bullshit. Right? You see the board, right? And it's all here in this novel, right? So it's all the same tactics, right? It's like, oh, I'm sending out, right, a thought force, right? Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma. A thought is a force, and philosophy should be an energy whose effects and ends should be towards the amelioration of mankind, right? And so this is my point when I say that he abuses wisdom, right? That he uses wisdom to manipulate people's minds, right? To manipulate the women in his life, right? To do fucked up, depraved shit, right? This is my point. And so we're barreling towards completion with regards to the novel, right? That there's only however many pages left. And so I'll pick up where I left off. Building a coven. I'm with you, Lisa assures me. I know how easy it is to say this, but you have to keep going. I love you. And we both cry, a little. Leaving the library around 2:30, I backtracked to the closest smoke shop, which was in fact the second one I passed where Randy dropped me off at the library. Between where Randy dropped me off and the library. I purchased 8 ounces of white vein Meng Da Kratom and 1 THCA gram and a half pre-roll. From there, I walked back towards the library, stopping first at the Walgreens to steal water from the fountain. The fountain in the library is broken. As I walked to the gas station to buy cigs, Annabella said, "I want him to eat something." So I ate 3 tenders, some wedges, and a honey biscuit. Every person I saw, with the exception of an Indian cashier, was black. Nice, kind-hearted overall, boisterous, loud. I seemed alien to them, I have no doubt. Thereafter I set out hobbling, and realized after a time my right foot is likely larger, however slight, than my left. I say this because the last 2 pairs of shoes I have been too small, and both times my right foot has felt more constricted, in pain. And now these Sperry's are binding it in such a way that my right shin aches, throbs, and feels inflamed, though I know I haven't hit it on anything of late. As I hobbled along the necessary left, right turns, after maybe 2 miles my shin screamed in agony, so I have stopped, however shortly before said loud ache, while shuffling like a palsied cripple, heading northeast along Highway 79, appreciating the magenta-centered half of the primary coupled wheel, the dark on light half. I witnessed a full moon rise, the supermoon they say, the optical illusion of the moon rising over the tree line, cast in full shadow, forcing perspective. I have cast my spells accordingly, as I'm sure we all have. Willow says, "It's so much." It was a magic moment, whose elegance still radiates electric. Full moon over magenta. Abracadabra. The light will be gone soon. Minutes. My time at the library was anxiety-inducing, if productive. Seeing the bus prices made me anxious. The flight prices relieved me. But it's only that price if I buy it now. And after I bought that food, all the money was gone. And I'm glad I ate. I don't feel guilty or upset. Annabella. She thanks me for thinking of her. I don't want you thinking that I care about that money at all. I needed to eat. I'm glad I did. But getting to New York. Would someone let me work for 1 day in exchange for the flight? Eventually I had to leave, finding no resolution. And always am I made to feel loved by Alistair and Annabella, Clay and Q, Lisa and Willow. We tear up constantly at the audacity, the absurdity of it all. How excellent it all is. But nothing can begin if I cannot arrive. The light is all but gone. I suppose I'll stop for now. Mother Moon, full of passion, watch over me this night in the pure cosmic temple, the endless forest. I stopped right at the 3-hour mark. I have taken a seat in a green grove just off the road right next to a no trespassing sign. I'll sit here maybe for 1 hour. It is 50 minutes to the nearest grocery store. Town of Bells. The sunrise was exceptional. The fog. Again, the rise of the solar orb behind the tree line casting shadow. Sometimes, while walking, I would be positioned where 2 layers of trees, an indeterminate distance apart, filtered my vision. And only in those moments could I clearly mark the edges of the body, celestial chalk outline, that perfect arc. It said something to me about sight, depth of field. And true, while walking down this largely undeveloped agricultural land on both sides of the highway, seeing no power lines or cars brings you back to an earlier time. I remember a hideous body of water to my right as I walked along the highway. No order, a wide, ugly flooded plain, but inside a myriad of unblossomed lotus petals floating atop the algae-ridden muck. And in contemplation the mystery of Buddhism is laid bare. Roots stretching through the eternity of the water, feeding the blossom in the open air. A distillation for a moment of true clarity, the Kundalini. Still my concern rages, and I know this is our power, I know, but it looms heavy over my soul. That word, that idea, madness. Don't say it. Alistair tells me. He's upset. I too have been upset this morning. The full moon saw me restless. It is vast expanses of green, with bands of trees all throughout. The leaves are changing, but everything is still green. You can see winter coming. The weather is perfect. It is quiet. Hawks, various birds. I bet in the summer it is a symphony of sound. I can remember thinking that as a teenager sitting with my friend on his porch and feeling the dull roar of bugs, it is a baseline frequency of a kind. Walking, I had this great feeling of nostalgia. Time became warped, distended. I don't know, but it seemed like you could place me in this scenario at any age, and it worked well. It worked as well as any other. I'm assured this is the final climb to the summit, that I'm going to play Hamlet, and it's just a couple months. Then I'll be back, and that everything is fine. They love me. I worried more this morning about falling out than I ever have. Perhaps it might happen. I have to go until there's no way to continue. Then I have to find an alternative in terms of getting to Nashville. If I walk, say, 10 miles a day, I will make it, probably. It's 150 miles in 15 days, if my shoes fit. I could do 15 or 20, but now my shit's fucked up. I really try not to think evil conspiracies, the blackest magic there is. My life is so difficult. I know this is my blind faith. Everything's good, dude, I'm told. It's all there. Someone, Lisa, is watching the curse. It is as potent as anything can be. I supercharged that one. I didn't know who she was, but I wouldn't have done it for sure if I'd known. I would never want to hex Alistair's family. I thought she was a psychic he partied with. What do I know? Never considered he had an adult child who's as fine as any woman can be. More. Fight me about it. I knew about the two with Annabella. But it's only my business once it is, and now it is. In the wildest, most magical way. Mind synthesis. I have been writing almost the entire time I've been here. By my timetable, I have to keep the bird song overhead. I have 20 minutes of leisure before I must get up and continue. The thought flashed my mind to ask a church for help. I'm sure piety is lacking in most of these establishments, but it's like my brother-in-law said, Ethan's a charismatic guy. Maybe I will, probably not, but 150 miles is a lot. I know I'm strong enough, unless I'm not, which I am, but it's a terrible strain. I always have her, there, right there, an endless cascade of support. I am bewildered by it all. I suppose I have to keep going. While preparing to leave, I had a memory of often feeling that these little green alcoves were passageways into a magical space. I often thought, as I do now, oh, perhaps there's something special just through there. I'm told I'm not alone. And so I'll stop there. It's a novelization of my experiences with Quentin Tarantino on the psychic frontier, right? I trusted him, right? So, boom, I heard him at Tribeca, right? By not giving him what he wanted, right? And so when I wrote to WME, right? No, I suspect, I don't really know. I suspect they said, you need to talk to this guy. And in his mind, he was like, no, this guy hurt me. Wah. So I'll make this guy look insane. I'll make this guy think that there's a woman who loves him that's my daughter, so that when he writes WME about her, I'll say, there it is. Look how insane you see. Look how cute and sweet and innocent my little girl is. He's not well in his mind. Right? And so that cascaded out into Hamlet, into the Discovery Institute, right? All the while, I was just looking for answers, looking for the truth, right? That he canceled this movie because of me, right? Right? And so, right? I didn't want to give him any power over my mind. He stole all of his power over my mind. Right? I didn't give it to him. Right, that this is how base he is. And now, again, it's a pendulum, right? I'm all the way in his mind, right? And so that's why I can tell you, right? That he puts his women on other men to fuck them so that he can remote view through his mind, and they are constantly have their eyes closed, right? Because Quentin's saying, yeah, I'm fucking you, they're not fucking you, right? Why's his son named Leo? I wonder, right? I don't want to play these games, right? This is what's put me in anxiety too, right? And this is why I'm talking about it, right? Because if I die, he has no more problems. That's the point, right? That he's engendered a really sick psychological condition in everyone's mind that's involved, right? And so I trusted him all those months out of respect, out of trust, out of love, right? Because I did want the role, right? But now I see that God saw fit to let me hold him accountable, right? That's right. That if I really wanted it, I see that now. That if I really wanted it, I would have ate his ass and barked like a dog, just like he wanted. Right? I didn't want to do that. Right? That he could have sent me a letter. Right? He could have looked me in the eye. He could have not stuck his nose up at me and turned his back on me. Oh, so I'm supposed to believe that that's the guy that I'm supposed to have a beautiful moment with. Right? This is his event. It's not my event. Right? He refused my letters. Right? And so, right, after Tribeca, I felt bad. I said, I'll build you a planner. Right? And WME was like, no, you need to talk to this guy. And in his mind, he was like, man, no, he's crazy. I'm going to make him go crazy. Right? I'm going to cast a black magic spell and make him lose his mind. Because I'm cool. I'm the big psychic swinging dick in the world. Right? And I don't give a fuck about these games. Right? But now, right? But now we're all in it. So, right? I suppose I'll stop. I've been going for about a half an hour. Know that life is not an accident. Right? Life is a convocation of pressure. Right? Upon the quantum manifold of electric probability and potential. This is one example. Every geometric form you see behind me is another example. Everything that can be manifested, everything that can be, has been, or will be manifested is embedded within every cubic centimeter of space. This is Pribram and Bohm's holographic model. Right? So the divine light of the conscious field exerts a pressure upon that. The specific angle or angles, right? Angel or angels, right? With which the divine conscious field exerts its knowing, its omnipotence upon, right? The abstract quantum manifold reflects what it materializes in the manifested world, right? This is how everything comes into being, right? This is the philosophy of Platonic forms. This is the philosophy of Walter Russell, right? That all things reside in the realm of idea. All instances of psychic phenomenon, clairvoyance, telepathy, psychokinesis, thaumaturgy, remote viewing, right? Is the mind of the adept tapping into the non-locality of the conscious field which permeates all of space, which exists perpetually in a state of rest. Right? And so the highest levels of said expression sees the adept behaving like God. So you could push a thought into someone's mind, right? And say, oh, I want you to question me about my book. And then you could push another thought that says, oh, I have a daughter who loves you, right? And then you could push another thought that says, oh, she's a bitch who gets pissed on for $100 an hour, right? And then you could push another thought that says, oh, no, you're not fucking him, you're fucking me. You're fucking me, right? You're my wife, right? Leo DiCaprio's got his dick inside of you, but you're fucking me, right? That they're all the same thing, right? It's all under the umbrella of clairvoyance, right? All instances of clairvoyance is the mind of the adept, right? Harmonizing and tapping into the non-locality of consciousness. And specifically in terms of remote viewing, right? It's the atomic structure of the brain of the adept harmonizing its behavior with the atomic structure of the disparate locale, which opens the psychic aperture, which is a true window. You see a full color image just like a film projector, a digital projector in your mind. So, see what's good in your life. Life is not an accident. Like, comment, subscribe, share, uplift your soul to God.